Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 508 of Ink in Your Veins. I'm Rachael Herron, and I'm so happy to be here today with Aime Austin for her second appearance. We are going to talk about a world of things, and you're going to love this. We're going to talk about how to start scenes with dialogue. We're going to talk about moving between countries. If you want to hear what she said last time when we really go deep into more of her backstory, that's on episode 164 from February 2020, which was a long time ago now. So that is the interview that is coming up. What has been going on around here? Just some more delicious work. I'm really enjoying writing still. I am really enjoying an easier pace. Um, Something that I noticed is that my wife has been out of town for a few days, and um, I noticed that I work more. Okay, this sounds so weird, but let me talk it through to you. I give myself a bigger break when she's not around, when she's not in the house. And I immediately, when I started realizing this yesterday, I thought, oh, that's weird. I think I'm trying to prove to Lala how much I work. Prove to her that I put 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the chair, barely a break, working hard, doing the work. And And I thought, well, that's kind of messed up. Because, I let myself read a book for an author that was going to be interviewed on the podcast for a couple of hours yesterday. I have been letting myself sleep in a bit more. So that means I get to the page a little bit later than 9. And and I was really flummoxed when I was thinking about why do I do that? Because of Lala. And I realized I don't. It's because of me. It's because I am trying to perform being a good worker. I am trying to puritanically perform this model of hard work, which then, of course, makes me worthy. So, having this opportunity to witness myself in the wild, because usually, here's how it goes. I usually go away to have writing retreats and to get that space to myself. Lala prefers to stay at home rather than take those writing retreats, or well, she doesn't write, but take a retreat. We have offered that to her many times before, saying things like, I get to go away. Why don't you? Would you like to go away for a weekend or 5 days or whatever and go have some alone time? But I've never been alone in this house. I've never been alone in wherever we live since we left the United States. This is the first time, so it's the first time I've been able to witness this, and it's freaking me out. It is absolutely 100% about the way I need to perform worthiness. And apparently, I'm much more gentle with myself when I'm alone and not trying to to prove it to somebody else. And Lala does not care. She always has thought it's really weird that I'll be in the kitchen and I'll say to her, I'll meet in the kitchen. She's making coffee. And I'll say to her, I have already worked for 4 hours. I'm going to take a 10-minute lunch break and then I'm going to go back to it. Or sometimes I belligerently say, I'm going to take a whole hour for lunch, which is what I've been trying to do more of. I'm going to go lie down and read a book. And she looks at me with question marks in her eyeballs and shoots me two thumbs up. Good job. You should do that. Um, so yeah, it's kind of feeling like rather a breakthrough on this end. Having lots of beautiful little breakthroughs lately. A couple things to tell you about. This is a fun thing. So, where did I put it? Here. My friend Yvonne is a Canadian and has written a book and it has been published. And the thing about Canada is that it has, just like New Zealand does, it has we call it a scheme in New Zealand, and scheme has a negative connotation everywhere else in the world, but here it's like a payment scheme. And it just means the way, the way you're paid. Um, Canadian authors, just like New Zealand authors, get paid when their books are checked out and read. So Yvonne came up with a great idea, and I'd love to help publicize it. There is a Google document. If you are a published writer in Canada, whether that's self-published or trad published, I don't think it matters. Um, of course, you'll be making more money if you're self-published on the immediate end. And the later, it'll take longer if you're traditional. But if you're a published author in Canada, please go to rachaelherron.com/Canada. I need to write myself a note to make that link. I will not forget. rachaelherron.com/Canada. Put your name on this list of put your name, the book title, what genre, what format, and the ISBN. And then if you do this, Yvonne and I, we didn't even talk about this. I'm coming up with this on the fly. But I would say that um, as you do this, go do this. And then, so Yvonne's book, Waiting for Fate, book one, is already on this list. What you do, if you put your name on this list, go to your public library and request Yvonne's book and check it out. If it's not your genre, who cares? You checked it out. And then Yvonne gets a royalty payment for that. How cool is that? But even better if, even if it's not your genre, you try to read some of these people who are Canadian authors with you, Canadians. So I'm not going to manage this. I'm not going to do anything with it. It's just going to live. It is Yvonne's Google page. Yvonne, as you're listening, if you want to put any other instructions or ideas in the notes over here or where you can be contacted, maybe your email would be great if you could drop that in there. But otherwise, rachaelherron.com/Canada. Hey, why not? Why not? Maybe we'll do this on a New Zealand thing too, but I am not in the mood to get around to that right now. So that's there. I wanted to tell you about that. Another thing that I'm very excited about that you know about if you are on my email newsletter, I have launched Beyond Affirmations, which is a 2-hour workshop, which will happen on July 6th in the United States at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's just 2 hours, and it's a workshop that will bring you ease in your writing. Um, Basically, I'm looking at the tension that we hold in our brains and our bodies when we think about writing. I'm also thinking about the affirmations that we tell ourselves, like, I love writing. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a seven-figure author. I'm a six-figure author. Our brains, even if it was something as simple for me as I love to write every day, my brain would hear the affirmation that came out of my mouth or that I thought, and my brain would say, because it's a very clever brain, it would say, no, you don't. No, that's wrong. You're lying. And then it would chastise me for lying, and then I wouldn't want to do it anymore. For me, that kind of affirmation doesn't work. I have learned what does work, which is this brain mental ladder system that I put together, taking a tiny bit from cognitive behavioral therapy, and then marrying that with somatic therapy practices to bring safety and ease into your body because your body is not really connected to your brain in most cases. The autonomic nervous system is not soothed or reassured by what we think in our brains or say out loud. Your body is remembering every harsh critique, every rejection. It is, or even the times you thought about the possibility of a harsh critique or a rejection. Your body's literally trying to protect you from writing because writing is important to you and because it thinks writing in your life equals danger. And that's why in Beyond Affirmations, 2-hour workshop, you will learn how to build believable thoughts, not affirmations that are lies, but affirmations or believable thoughts that don't make you cringe, plus very simple techniques to release that physical tension inside your autonomic nervous system that is blocking your creative flow. I need to make very clear that I am not a therapist. I am borrowing tools from practices and I have adapted them to the writing practice. This is only for the writing practice. I cannot help you with mental health issues or other things that need real, honest to God therapy with therapists with a lot of letters after their name. This is a 2-hour lightweight tool based system to give you to help your writing and your writing only. But it's really cool. It's really cool, and I'd love to have you. Early bird pricing is $49, and then you get the replay even if you can't come. That will go up to $99. And I do have to mention that if you're in Ink Village, it's free for you. You just get to come because I give Ink Village everything that I make. So if you want to check out Ink Village, that's at rachaelherron.com/Ink Village. But if you want to just do Beyond Affirmations, just do these 2 hours to learn the mental ladder system that give you believable beliefs to hold about your writing, and a few tools to make your body know that writing is a safe place for you to be as often as you want to be there. Please come along. That's at rachaelherron.com/beyond affirmations. And the link is in the show notes, rachaelherron.com/beyond affirmations. I would love to have you, and I'm really, really, really excited about it because the tools that I've been using for the last 6 months or less have kind of changed everything in a really beautiful way. So, your future relaxed shoulder self will thank you if you want to come along to that. Let me please tell you about Aime, who is the author of the Casey Court and Nicole Long legal thriller series, weaving sharp social commentary into gripping crime fiction. Born in Brooklyn, Aime graduated from Smith College and Cornell Law School before practicing family and criminal law in Cleveland, Ohio. She now splits her time between LA and Budapest, writing thrillers, hosting the podcast A Time to Thrill, and interviewing brilliant women creators. When she's not chasing down a plot twist, you'll find her in a yoga pose, with knitting needles in hand, or lost in a good book. Aime is a 2025 recipient of the Mystery Writers of America Barbara Neely Scholarship, and His Last Mistress is her most recent release. Please enjoy this interview. Please get some of your own writing done. Come tell me about it. And here we go. I could not be more pleased to welcome you back to the show. Will you please share your name and pronouns with us?
Hi, I'm Aime Austin, she, her. How are you?
I'm so glad to talk to you. When your publicist hit me up, I was like, oh my God, I have to catch up. And then I looked, and it was February of 2020 when our last show came out. And I remember
Sorry, I have to laugh.
it was pre-pandemic. I remember talking to you about Budapest and thinking like, oh gosh, we have to get out. But I don't think we seriously made our plan to leave the States until maybe October of 2020. And then we
But
left
you
within about
still did the
six
thing where you
months.
had to be in the hotel with the armed guard, right?
Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
that was 2021, so that was July 2021.
Oh,
Because there was no COVID in New Zealand, but that's
right.
because for 2 years they had the quarantine hotel. So
Everything
for
was
those first
good.
2 years, everybody had to stay in it. Yeah, that was intense. And it was great. I was just thinking about that with somebody the other day that like for 2 weeks, yes, it was hard, whatever. But also somebody brought me food 3 times a day and then took away my dishes 3 times a day. We just opened our mouth and food went in. It was, I would do it again. How are you? How has the last 4.5 years been treating you? My God.
Mostly good. It's ups and downs. I'm fine. My child is now like taller than me. He just came home from school. So I think when I talked to you, he must have been 10. So now he's 15, which is very
Oh,
different than 10. Um,
15 is very different. I have a 15-year-old
so
nephew and it's
it's
adorable, but wow.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's adorable, but wow. So a friend's coming into town and she's like, I'm gonna see him. I'm like, I just want to warn you that he's taller than all of us now. Like, I just want to be clear. And she was like, Yay. I was like, Yeah, okay.
Oh, I think it's hardest on the mom. That particular transition is what I've seen. All the rest of us go, it's so great. He's so tall. The mom goes, no, he's taller
Well,
than
because you
me.
have a little kid, and
And
then okay,
you
I'm
can
not
pick
taller
him
than either of
up.
my parents. So to me, that it just never happened. But then I thought, okay, I had prepared myself for 15, and he got taller at like 13, and I was like, this is 2 years too early. And he's like, I can bend down to hug you.
Oh.
I'm also not tall, but we're not going to discuss that part.
And with all of this, with life, with the 15-year-old, you are still writing your newest book. It's out already. Is it out already? Is His Last
Yeah.
Mistress
Oh wait,
out?
I'm really good today. Look,
It's
it's
beautiful,
his
and it's
last
also
mistress.
behind you. So it's a beautiful, beautiful cover. Um, I love it. His
Yeah.
Last
So
Mistress is a thriller, and we're going to talk
but
about
also
that.
psychological. So it's the
Yeah.
first time. So I'm pivoting. Like I'm working on a book now, which is really where my head is at. It is like all day. Like this was
Yes.
like a year ago, and that's like
Yeah.
all day. So I'm really pivoting, I think, to psychological. Okay, there's two things. One, okay, I've had all these revelations over the weekend. So you're just like, welcome
Please
to
just
my
let us have it.
privy. So I think the thing I've been realizing is that I'm trying to, as always, fit like a square peg into a round hole. And I was like thinking about this weekend, and I was like, I write legal thrillers and I write social thrillers or whatever I'm saying. And somebody was like, do you think your writing is literary? And I'm like, I'm not literary. Those people are the special people with no plot and the
You are
beautiful words,
commercial and your book sell.
all words and no plot. And she was like, but I think she's like, you're trying to sell to an audience. She's like, are you reading the popular thrillers? I'm like, yes. She's like, what's happening in those? I'm like, well, somebody dies and they're very short and punchy. She was like, you don't always kill somebody and it's not short and punchy. And I was like, I'm sorry, what did you say? So I'm having the thought that I may have to pivot how I'm, let's say, marketing or selling the books. I'm not going to change how I'm writing. Well, I'm changing some things about how I'm writing because I'm just older and, you evolve. But if I'm not going to kill anybody on body, I don't kill people always. There's been three deaths over 15 books. So I'm not like, it's not every day.
Wow. That's not a lot.
Because that's
Yeah.
not what it's about. It's about corruption and like okay,
Hmm.
there's a whole lot of court. It's not all murder. Because if it were, then that'd be like insane.
That's too much trial for all
Right.
of it.
So, I mean, we have a lot of like, we have family law, we have juvenile law, we have like civil cases. And so to me, it's all not all the same, but it's all part of the milieu. And I was thinking, but readers are like, do you have a body? And I was like, so about that. So,
So if
and
pushed by your friend and what you've been thinking, what genre would you call yourself right now? Keeping in mind you could change it tomorrow, but what would you say?
so okay, I would like to be in psychological. Somebody was like, what about domestic noir? And I was like, what? So I'm Googling that over the weekend. I didn't realize I do read a lot of those where like people are in their house and they don't leave, and it just like the noose is tightening. And I'm always like, and
I
like
do
I
love
read a couple
those.
of books where they're in the woods, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, and then he takes the car, and I'm just like, oh, now you're there with a baby, so you just can't like run out the door. And this is pretty awful. And look at it tightening. Or even like some of them are
Hmm.
suburban. Even I read one, I think they were in Edinburgh. And I'm like, but he's like watching and everybody's got like a ring now or whatever. So like you can't just anonymously like even walk down the street. And so I'm leaning toward that. So this book, there is a death, like somebody does, but only like halfway through. I was like, they're like, they don't die on page one. I'm like, who kills somebody on page one? We got things to do. But
Honestly, and a lot of times when we have somebody killed on the first page, they're cozy. Like a lot of cozy mysteries are set up that way,
that's
which
true.
I don't
That's
think
true.
is that cozy.
But they're having jam and solving a murder.
And death.
They're
And
knitting.
exactly.
So, so I'm thinking about that in the book I'm working on now. Nobody's dying, but it's really like the noose is tightening, and it's really I feel bad for her.
If you feel bad for her, that does sound like psychological thriller or domestic thriller. Like that.
Well, yes, and nobody's in
Yeah.
court. Nobody's a lawyer. Like everybody has like a job that's not a lawyer. So she's like a
Yeah.
musician, and like for instance, an actor, and like people are doing things that are not lawyer things. So it's going to be my first book, I think, without a courtroom scene.
Wow. Okay,
The
so
first,
talk to us a little bit because you come to writing on the direct, attorney to writer pipeline as many as many lawyers do. There's,
I know.
but can you talk to us a little bit about writing crime fiction through the lens of a former criminal defense attorney?
So, well, let me say, so I wrote romance first. We talked about this. Like a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people
yeah.
that's how most of the thriller writers or crime writers I know, we all came to it, and then we're like,
Yep.
let's get back
Me
to
too. Yep.
that. So,
That's funny.
okay, I didn't like law school. I went like it was not I want to say it was not my choice. I'm an adult and I guess I could have like fought that. But I went, didn't want to go, didn't want to practice law, barely practice law. So I will say that I've now come to a place of acceptance that maybe this is what I get for the degree. Maybe
Yes.
this is what I get.
That's
I
fantastic.
I'm not the CEO or the, counsel of whatever, and I don't have like all the trappings of that. But maybe this is what maybe it wasn't a waste because like for years I was like, I could have spent my time doing any number of other things
I
other
think
than
that's a
that.
great way to think about it. This is what you bring to the writing. You bring veracity, you bring the right words, you bring what the intensity of what it feels like, and you don't actually have to step into the courtroom. I just think that's ideal.
No, so I was helping a friend out, let's just say this, earlier this year, and I went to court with her. And I will say two things about it. One, it was exactly the same as it was 25 years ago. And two, it was exactly the same as it was 25 years ago. So I
Mm,
can't decide. So the advice I was giving her, like not as her attorney, but just as like a person, was on point, spot on. It was also slightly horrifying that there has been no, the biggest evolution is that they have screens. So all the cases, like when you come in, they're all on the screen,
right.
or whatever. And I'm like, okay, because they used to be a paper like tacked to the wall or something. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is the evolution. Like we have flat screen
Wow.
TVs. Like that's the evolution. Literally nothing else has changed. And the thing is, like we as humans or whatever, we know more like psychologically, or we know more about people and humans. And that does not seem to have translated at all to court. And it was well, it was edifying in the sense that I was like, oh, well, my advice wasn't off kilter. Like it was
It's still on.
100%.
Yeah.
But also, oh my God, like she wasn't even born when this, like, when I was in court last.
Hmm.
And yet not a lot has changed. So,
Which is really interesting because that contrasts in a big way to your writing, which is continually evolving. It's been evolving since you started.
right.
The last time you were here, we talked a little bit about your process, but can you talk to us about what your process looks like now? Because I've never talked to a writer twice that it hasn't changed for somewhat.
It's changed. Well, okay. I'm a little bit in denial about that because why isn't it exactly the same? You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Right.
Like,
I figured it out
I
once.
figured it out once, and here we are again. So I think the thing that's so I still, in theory, I would like to write every day. I think I'm writing less than I used to. I actually am. I know the output's less. Sometimes I look back and I go, how did I write 3 books in a year? And now I'm like, but okay, so there's perimenopause and then there's like a teenager. So there's like other, you know what I mean?
Those are
Like
big
I
things. Yes. Yeah.
before I got into hormone
Yes.
replacement therapy, I was like brain fog and fatigue. And I was
Yeah.
like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so I was using all my energy to continue exercising. But I was like, I only got like one burst of energy a day. And if I like worked out really hard, then I didn't have it later in the day. So
Hmm.
that is a lot more even. It's not perfect, but it's a lot more even. So I had to slow down in my writing. And I've never been a slow writer. And I have a lot of feelings about people who are slow writers that are not about them, but it's about my feelings about like, we got to keep it moving, like, keep it moving.
Yeah.
So I think what's changed is that my writing, I don't want to say it's more contemplative because I'm not trying to do that, but I'm thinking more about what I'm writing, and I'm actually going to now, I want to put a knife in my eyes. I say this, I'm going to add a plot line and I have to do revisions. I actually just, no, I just, like, I literally just sat down all day and thought about how I don't want to do that because that's not how I write. I've always written from beginning to end and I don't go back. I go back 3 pages or whatever, fix it and keep it moving. But I like to write like a finished draft. So,
And I
like,
would like to interrupt, as I'm sure I interrupted last time, to say to all the listeners that you are in the vast minority of people who can do that. The only people who could do that are the people who could do it and finish books. If there are
yeah.
listeners who are like, well, that's the way I do it, but you're not finishing books, then that's not your method. And now I'm dying to hear more about this and how it changed. Because number one, I'm so jealous of that ability. But number two, how does it feel to be changing that slightly?
So it's not that it's not done. Like I know when it's done. Like I know when there's enough like layering in. Like when there, because I only write dialogue and then I layer it in as I like write. So I understand that part of the
Yeah.
process. That
Yeah.
hasn't fundamentally changed. I know that it needs, okay. I feel like suspense has gotten more suspenseful. I mean, I'm sure,
Yes.
like, I'm sure
I wrote two thrillers.
we,
I don't even know if they were out the last time we talked, but I wrote two thrillers for Penguin. And I'm like, that's really hard.
so
They're
it's,
hard.
so that's the thing. So I'm trying to be more suspenseful and be more thoughtful. And this book, The His Mistress, is the first one, and the book I'm writing now is the second one, where I've changed, like, where it's got a lot more psychological and a lot more
Hmm.
suspenseful. That requires some more work than I have put in before. Because before, like something happened, they went to court, it got resolved. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a romance.
Yeah.
Like there's a meet cute, they have whatever their issue is, and then it gets resolved. So
Hmm.
that's a box. I know how to do
Hmm.
that box, and I was happy with that box. This box is a little harder. So like I don't know. So the book I'm writing, it's going to be, let's say, maybe 90,000 words. I mean, I know that like intellectually, like I talk to a writer who's like, how do you know how long it's going to be? I'm like, you have to know that before you go in. But that's me. He writes literary, so so maybe they don't have to know anything.
It is what
I
it
don't.
is.
It
Yeah.
is what it is. I don't get that in American. So I know it's gonna be 90,000 words. I've written 60,000 words. And then for 3, 4 weeks, nothing because I knew it wasn't right. And it was infuriating, infuriating. And I'm just like biking and like going to the gym and like walking around and doing other things. Like I wrote like for like now I'm doing other things. And then I was like, so this weekend I was like, well, it's time. So I'm biking because I can only think when I'm moving.
Hmm.
And so I'm pacing or biking, or my son's like, you pace a lot. And I was like, apparently I do. Um, and so I was pacing and biking, and I finally sat down and I was like, I figured out what needs to happen. But if that's going to happen, it's going to happen in chapter 8. And I've written to chapter 20. So now what?
Oh no, that's a
So I'm
big
on,
revelation.
so I'm on chapter 9. So I know it needs to happen. And putting it in, it's excruciating. Like I would rather do anything else. Like, could I like peel paint or like, I don't know, like go out and trap moths? I don't know, like anything. So I'm doing it now, and that's a change. Like, I think 5 years ago, I would have finished this way and saved the concept or the way I wanted to do it for another book. And these two books are the first time I'm going back and I'm like, I'm going to make the book what I really want it to be, but I don't enjoy
Mm.
that process as much as just writing from beginning to end.
Do you think that you enjoy the end process more though when you hit it because it was more hard won?
No.
No.
No, I mean, no, no, I will only say this. This is the like so his last mistress is the first book. So I haven't put a book up on NetGalley in a long time because not everybody loves me. And it's actually the first book where nobody's hated it. Because
That's
I usually
amazing.
have like a love hate, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
don't have to love me. I'm okay.
yeah.
And this is the first book nobody, and I thought, oh, so if you put in more work, maybe it's more universally appealing. So I mean, I appreciate that part, but this part, no. So I do think, like, my friend was asking me, she was like, so can you get the proposal done? And I was saying, of course, I need to know what happens in the end. So the proposal's like 80% done, except for like the synopsis and what happens in the end. So we're not, that's the hard part. I don't like that. But so I have to figure that out, obviously, before I even do anything with it. But I'm just like, this is the books feel better and more nuanced, and that is different. But I don't like a shift in process because I had a process and the process was working, and why change?
But you could always go back to it if you wanted to. You could go to that back to that process, back to the other genres.
And
Like,
I might do
but
that
yeah,
after I write
yeah,
this psychological thriller. I don't know now,
yeah.
but then after, how you're sitting around and you're like, oh, but if I apply this process, but I involve these characters, it could be thus. And I'm already like, oh, but that feels like work. So I don't think I could continue to write 3 books a year or 2 books a year, even at that pace. And I may be down to one, and I have feelings about that, but it's probably okay.
I am resonating with so much of this. Oh, could you um let's see what we haven't asked you since then. Uh 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 uh, uh can you share a craft tip or two that has come to you over the years?
I feel like I'm poor at craft. Like I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot because okay, so the older I get and like I've talked to all the writers I spend time with are like 20 years and 20 books in. So our
Yeah.
conversations are indeed really different.
Yeah.
But I think, and so occasionally we talk to people who, like I've talked to a couple people now who are just on their first book, and I'm like, wow, that's okay, wow. So I think the biggest thing I'm learning is maybe there's more layering than I thought. And maybe, okay, I will say this, and I said this probably to you before, but okay, people spend too much time on the beginning. They spend too much time. I'm sure you've read this. Like people,
Amen.
perfect, the first chapters, perfect. And then you're like, what happened? So I'm not encouraging that. Like I'm not saying you should go back and dwell because I think that way lies madness. But perhaps there's something to be said for layering in, but not getting stuck.
Hmm. So for layering in, we're talking about doing these kind of
Mo
light over
heightening
revisions.
I want to say heightening, not the writing. So like my process is like dialogue, and then like they're walking, like they have to be somewhere, and then they have to be like dressed, and then they have to have props, right? You know what I mean?
So wait,
'Cause
let me break that down a little bit. So the first time you write the scene, it's just dialogue, nothing else.
just dialogue, nothing else,
And then
because
you go
that's
to
what
the
I
top,
hear
yeah. And then you go to
in
the
my
top of the
head.
scene. and then you add some
That's the
visual
work because
stuff.
people are talking in my head because we're all, I mean, I know it
Right.
sounds crazy. It sounded crazy when I was a child. It's less crazy now,
Hmm.
maybe. So people are talking in my head constantly. And so all I have to do is write that down. That's
Yeah.
no work.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
quote,
Yeah. Yeah.
write it down, quote. Next,
Yeah.
hit enter. The other part is the work. Then I'm online. Like they got a place to live and then I got to go find them an outfit. And then like, they have to, wait, did she put that? She was cutting. I just did it today. She was she was eating and then they're walking. And I was like, oh, they have to put the food down and pack it up. You know what I mean? Like they can't just like leave
Yes.
the park bench and keep
Yes.
walking because then
Yes.
they're assholes, excuse me. But then you just can't leave your crap. So
I
I
did
was
that
like,
earlier
oh,
this morning where he closed his eyes and then I don't think he ever opened them. He's just like, I
you're
can't
like,
open
it's
it.
such the conversation we had. So that part, like that doesn't change. It's now like what would be, so I'm reading a whole chapter. Like I read chapter 8 today. And I thought, okay, I read the chapter, what could heighten the suspense? And it's only like two things, but I think it makes it better. And so I appreciate more layering in, but it's slower. So I would
Mm.
say go back and layer in, but only if it doesn't bog you down forever
Yeah.
and ever and ever, and the book doesn't get done.
It works for you as a process. It works for a person as a process if you are moving forward, if books are getting done. Just like you
Yeah, I
said,
gotta
that then
every
then
day.
it's a process.
The word count
Yeah.
has to increase. Like
Yeah.
so now, my word count is not always increasing right at the end, but the word count has to increase because otherwise,
Yeah.
what am I doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I know I didn't ask you this last time because it's a newer question. What is the kindest thing you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
Well, okay. I'm working on, it's actually a question I'm thinking about. So this year, like I won, I don't know if you know this, like the
I
Mystery Writers of America has like a Barbara Neely scholarship. So I won a scholarship and it comes with
I
cash.
saw it in your bio. Congratulations. That's so
Thank
cool.
you. So it's like they give you $2,000 and like spend it on something that would advance your writing career.
Wow.
And so I got the check, deposited the check in like a segregated account. And now I'm thinking, okay, but what would be a kindness? Would it be, I have no idea. So that's like I'm
Mhm.
thinking about it a lot. Like I think what I initially thought was I was gonna like try to find the perfect editor for me, and I'm still on that journey, like, you know what I mean? And somebody who loves me so much and understands me and then can make the book better. I don't know if that person's coming to save my writing. So I let that go, maybe. But to answer your question better than what I don't know about the future is that I think that this is like the hardest journey. It probably only happened in the last 5 years. When people ask me what I do, I tell them I'm a writer.
Mm.
Because for the up until maybe 2020, if people ask me like out on the street or what, you know what I mean? Like
Right,
not
right.
people
The
who are like
taxi
in my,
cab or whatever. Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, I just keep busy. What do you do? Well, I do some Pilates and I knit. I travel a lot, but I keep busy. And then that's what I used to say. Like that was my answer.
Wow.
And so now when people ask, I answer it. And it's probably a kindness to myself to admit to myself finally that I'm willing to say that out loud.
That's
And then, but
beautiful.
you know what happens on the other end? People are like, "Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't know you do that." They're like, "What, have you written anything?" And I was like, "So I'm like 29 books in," and they're like, "Wait, you never mentioned this before?" And I thought, "No, apparently I have never mentioned it before." But hi, sorry, it's literally the bizarrest
That
conversations
is
I've
the
had.
best. But that is such a kindness to yourself because it is you taking yourself very seriously when somebody else asks you a serious question
Mhm.
and coming back with that. That's beautiful. I absolutely love that. Are you still going back and forth to Budapest a lot?
Yeah, so I'm going in 3 weeks, or yeah, I
How is
think
that
it's
working in your life? Like what does it look like?
well, it would look different if I had more control over everything. But my child's in high school, so
Yeah.
and I have a greater appreciation that perhaps he should be in school every day. So
The
earlier I
man
had
keeping us
less of
down.
appreciation, but it's only 3 more years. So,
Yeah.
so what it looks like now is usually all summer, spring break and winter, more or
Mm.
less. And so it's a total of probably 4 months a year, but it's three
Mhm.
different, like I have to get on a plane and, do that whole thing.
That's a long flight. But do you have a place there? Do you rent different
Yeah.
places or
No, no, no. I have a place.
oh
And I actually, the kindness I did for myself actually was I got it renovated. So I, I've lived in many houses and I've renovated. And all I could think of was like after the last renovation, I think my son was 2, and I thought, never again. Like literally never again. And then I was sitting there and I thought, well, but if this is your forever home, why am I living with this woman who ran out of tiles halfway through the bathroom? I literally am like, like in the shower, and I was like, I think I want the tiles to go all the way around. You know what I know she ran out, she bought some like, I don't know if they're mermaids or shells or whatever, but she ran out. And I was like, but what happened?
What? You just
Um,
stopped. Yeah.
well, she had just renovated it when I bought it, like
Oh.
my son was two, so 13 years ago. And so I was like, I don't want to be one of those people like this is I hate the waste. I live in California. You know this in California.
Yeah.
People like,
Yeah.
I know that somebody had just done it. What I'm gonna do is like redo it. And you're just like, it's such a waste. But after 12 years, and then like the cabinets in front of she put cabinets in front of a radiator. So every time I wanted to heat the kitchen, I had to open the cabinets. But then I couldn't walk through the kitchen because the cabinets are open. So like so I had the entire thing renovated to my taste, and I've done that before. So I know I have a great appreciation for it being for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I really love is so I hired okay, I love to hire women. I hired two women who run a design build firm.
Mhm.
And they took me they took me more seriously than I took myself. And they were like, well, what would it be like to make an apartment for a writer? And so I know, right? And I had never so like they did bookshelves on one side, like all bookshelves, because well, I have a lot of books out.
Yeah.
I'm always cutting down, but they still come in. I don't know how they come in, but
I
still they
don't know.
magically
They like
come
they
in.
walk in at night under the
I
doors.
have a
Yeah.
pile. I'm like, how do I have
Yeah.
piles? Like, what's going on here?
Hmm.
And then, but so in one side is all bookcases or bookshelves or whatever you want to call them, built-in customs. And then they were even like, what height do you need for your books? And I was like, oh, I need some heights for dictionaries and like this thesauri or whatever. And then an etymology book or
Wow.
whatever. But the other book, other side, they built in like a special like side where I have a desk. And they're like, what do you want? I'm like, I always wanted an antique desk, which by the way is very easy to get in Europe and not expensive. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And so then I have like an antique desk and like and all built-in shelves there for my printer. They're like, well, can we build something for your printer so you don't have to see it? Because I don't, you know. And I was like, yes, I would like that. But they really sat down. I remember the meeting, it was in the winter, God save us all. But they sat down and they're like, what can we do for a writer? Because we think that's so cool. And I was like, because they're like, what do you do all day? And I'm like, well, I sit in my apartment and write books. And they're like, where do you sit? And I was sitting in the hallway and they were like, why are you sitting in the hallway? And I was like, that's a different conversation for a different time. They were like, but why can't you sit in a room that has light? And they even put up like all my book covers, like, and I was
Oh
like,
my God. I'm literally sitting here. I don't know if you can see this, but my printer is on the edge of the desk here because I had to print one thing out yesterday and I had to dive behind the desk and almost break my hand trying to pull the printer up from where it had, like, I had shoved it 6 months ago. Like, that is
so,
incredible.
so this is like these things. And
Yeah.
I don't print every day. It's not that deep, but,
But it's really nice when you just can.
it's
Yeah.
not 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh, so everything is for like geared around like being an artist. So it's like paintings and my writing. And I was like, oh, okay. And also the tiles go all the way around.
Can I ask you emotionally, where do you find it, if you find it, easier to write in LA or Budapest? Or is it kind of
There.
the same? You do find it
No,
easier
no, no.
there.
You're there. So the books I know what I've written there. I write more there. Because when my son was younger, he was in camp and or like in school and stuff like that. But it's Europe, so they're there all day and they cook for them. So I didn't have to like prepare meals and like do
Yeah.
all this. And I dropped them off at 8 and picked them up at like 4 or 5. You know what I
Oh,
mean? And
wow.
I
Yeah.
also got to take the tram or whatever, so I don't have to drive and all the stuff that you do in California that interrupts any kind of thought. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So if I'm on the tram, I can read. So I would read while I'm on the public transportation, and then I can write when I'm at home, and I'm not splitting my time doing both. You can't read and write
Mm.
at the same time. So I find it easier to write there. I also find it, I don't know, I just actually had to write an essay about this, but I find it's the first place I feel like at home. And so I don't, it's the stress is so low. And I don't know if it's like the fact that there's no guns or also there's healthcare.
The big one.
Like, but I mean,
But
like
yep.
all taking all of that away, like,
Hmm.
I don't know, like I'm here and I don't think I get up every day and go, I'm gonna get shot or whatever. I don't live like that. And, LA's not quite like that. I don't know, maybe it was in the 80s. It's not like that now. I find it to feel fairly safe, but there's still like this, I don't know, it's not a cloud. I don't because it's sunny, but you know what I mean? There's something hanging over and being there, all of that's eliminated. Like sometimes I cross the street and I think, well, if I get hit by a car, where's my insurance card? It's called a Thai card, yeah, but it's not important. And I was like, so I'll just get in the card and then they'll take me to the emergency room and I won't have to worry about it. So
That's
the relief
yeah.
from some of those things is so I mean, or I don't have to worry about like, are these going to be forever chemicals in my like cosmetics? Or I know there's no GMOs. Like
It sounds
so
like New Zealand. We don't have the GMOs. We don't have the additives in the food.
no, they have them.
I lost like 40 pounds by moving here and I didn't change eating or moving. I
So
would probably
all
walk a little
of
bit more.
I do,
But
yeah.
the food is good.
So, and this, my son makes fun of me because I make the same food here and there. And he goes, he always sits down, he goes, you know what tastes better? I was like, I don't want to hear it. And he's like, but, and I was like, all I did was cut like a tomato and put some garlic in. And then like you saw me make the food. It's not like I'm doing anything. There's no magic happening in the kitchen. And so all of
Yeah.
those things here, like when I shop here, I'm like, okay, is it organic? Is it non-GMO? Where am I section of today in Whole Foods? Like, where am I doing this and
Hmm.
where am I doing that? And it's not that I can't do it or that I'm not a highly functioning human who can do that, but letting all of that go
Hmm.
is saves so much mental energy that I can spend thinking about crazy people
Yes,
who are
yes,
not killing each other.
thinking about other crimes. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. That is beautiful. And I'm so glad for you. Can you tell us about this is also a new question. Can you tell us about a moment when you knew you had ink in your veins?
So it's so interesting. Like aging is so interesting because now I have like a lot to go back and think about. All I ever wanted to be when I was a kid was a writer, but it's not something I would ever say. So, I mean, I don't, I, okay. I grew up in like the 80s, it would go 80s, you know? Like if
Hmm.
you weren't like trying to be the Wolf of Wall Street, what were you trying to do?
Yeah.
I mean, it was so that. So the answer I always gave was like doctor or something that was really like socially acceptable and the kind of thing you would answer and people would walk away and that would be fine. Like I'm talking about adults, kids don't ask these
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
And what I really wanted to say was writer. So, in my room at night or whatever, I was reading books and like imagining what it'd be like to write. And I would try, and I found it so difficult. I was like, I didn't think of like 13, 14, 15. I was like, I'm going to write a book. And I wrote like 2 pages. It's like, this is hard
I
and this
remember
is
thinking that.
bad.
And I'm
And
terrible. Yeah.
I was like,
I thought I was
oh,
good.
I
Yeah.
thought I was good. And I was like, oh, this is clearly not a thing. So I knew that's what I wanted. What I didn't know is how to achieve it or if I ever would or whatever. So, I mean, I went through life, it's like get these grades and go to these schools and do these things. And even I remember I was in college and like in my, I was an English major because what am I going to do? And like my English advisor, lovely man, he was like, well, why don't you just write after college? And I looked at him and I was like, his name was Doug. We called him my first names. And I was like, Doug, yeah, that's not really how it's going to go in my family. You know what I mean? Like this is not how it's gonna be.
He
And
was
he
right.
but he was right and I was wrong. And I was like, well, I have to go to school. And he was like, so you're gonna go to school that's really expensive, and then you're gonna have to work to pay off the loans for that school. And he's like, but maybe then you'll write. And he was 100% right. And I wish, like, but I was like 20 and he was
Right. You don't
probably
know
like
anything then. Yeah.
50 or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so I knew all along it felt like an unacceptable thing to want or to say.
And it's so interesting because it goes exactly with your story of earlier, where, 5 years ago you started saying the word.
Mm.
I am a writer. This is what I do. And I just think that is beautiful.
Still
And I
freaks
could
me out a little bit. I'm gonna drink water.
I can see it on your face. Ah, don't say it like that. All right. Easier then to do. Will you give us a little bit of promotion? Will you please tell us about this most recent book, His Last Mistress?
So what I like about it is that okay, I'll say this. I'm sure you know the people at Kobo.
Okay.
So they read a lot of books. And like so I was on like line with them and they're like, we didn't know it was gonna happen. They're like, the twist got me. And I was like, it got you. Like,
Wow, if you get the Kobo people.
that's what I was like, you can reel in the Canadians. Look what I've done.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
it's the first time I've tried to write more psychological, more suspense, and it has a twist. And I love the twist. And the thing is, so the thing is, it was hard. Like, I wrote the book and it had an ending, and I was like, this could be the ending. And, I was sitting around, I was like, but that's not the ending. Yeah, no, that's not the ending. And I had to rewrite it. And then actually, I was emailing with a beta reader actually over the weekend because she's whatever, we're talking about knitting. But and she was like, I was telling her I was because I she had read it before the acknowledgments, and she's the acknowledgments, and I had two of the beta readers. I was like, oh, I should tell you this. Um, I don't know if, well, I sent them copies. Who knows if nobody flips to the
Hmm.
back. But when I was talking to her, one of the things, and I actually took advice, and I flipped the last two chapters too.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, this works better. Like I don't know if like 10 years ago I would have taken that, but I think so it's more suspenseful and it has a twist, and I really like that. So I will say there's a lot going on. There is a body. And I can't say who died because that's too much, but because it doesn't
yeah,
happen until
yeah.
halfway through. But it really ties up a lot of like loose ends. So it's a standalone in terms of giving read standalone because most of the readers of this one actually have been standalone. But it ties up loose ends of two series I had going.
Mm,
One like 10 books, which is now I realize maybe too many, and one five, or this would be five.
mm.
So it ties up like a lot of loose ends, and all these people who I've been with, nobody's been with them. I've been with for like 20 years. Like they've evolved and I know what happens. You
Wow,
know what I
that is a
mean?
lot to do in one book, though, too. Like to hold that all in your head, to be wrapping up two series and writing a standalone. I cannot even imagine.
Well, that's the part I don't like about writing. That's what the part I'm having now, like holding a book in your head. I wish that's the hardest part because you have to hold all the facts in there. And the more like you write, the more facts that you get, but you have to like,
And then you're changing facts, and you got to remember which facts you changed. And yeah, I love a spreadsheet for that. I don't plot out, but I plot backwards as I write. I'm writing, I'm filling in the
oh, I
spreadsheet.
use like Aeon timeline, but I have to write it all down because
Yeah.
like even the band today, I realized I changed the name of the band and I was like, oh, I changed this. I guess I didn't change it through the whole book. But now what do I think? I was like, how did I make that mistake? It's always been this, as you know.
Oh,
So
fabulous. So, His Last Mistress can be found everywhere. The books are available. And where can
everywhere.
we find you?
So
LA or
I
Budapest?
that's true. I'm either here or there. Oh my God. Well, I went to Italy this year and we're going
Oh,
again.
oh, I love
My son
Italy.
is all into like these things. And we went to like Peru. He's all into like ancient things right now.
Mm,
And he's 15, so the time to get to
mm.
spend with him is starting to dwindle. But you can find me at actually now like legal thriller author on all like social media. And actually, if you go to legalthrillerauthor.com, it forwards to Amy Austin.
Perfect. And you have a podcast, I have to mention.
I do.
A Time to Thrill.
A
A
time to
Time to
thrill.
Thrill.
A time to
So
thrill where I
go
introduce
check that out.
brilliant creative women, and I still love it. I love to have like a long form conversation with women about being creative in their creative pursuits and also being self-supporting creatives. I love that. It's like my
Supporting
favorite
creatives.
people. Like I know. I was like,
That is exactly what I love. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This has been such a joy to catch up. It has been a delight to talk to you, and I'm
no,
so pleased.
it's
And I really think that you should bring your son to New Zealand at some point.
so it's on our list. There's a TV show it's like a web show, so it's hard to explain. Where one of the things they travel all around the world, and they did one in New Zealand. He's like, we should do that, and I was like, so the thing about driving on the other side of the road, I've done it once. Like I drove up and down England. I always felt like I was gonna die, and I feel like that would be the hardest part about New Zealand because I
It's
don't.
easier than England in that there's just so much less traffic for
Oh
most of
yeah,
the country.
right.
But sometimes that was hard for me when I was getting used to it because I was like, I need somebody in front of me to know where I should be on the road.
I know because
Like,
I feel like I would drift. And then also, so I'm going to tell you this, what I learned about what my son taught me about New Zealand. I don't know how I didn't know. I know that, well, I now know there's two islands. And he was like, so we're watching this show and he's like, I wonder how they're going to get from one to the other. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, they're going to take a ferry. I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And he's like, it's the port of whatever he told me it was. And I was like, how did I not ever know this?
that's New Zealand. We don't talk about no one talks about New Zealand, but I live in the port city. I live in Wellington, and
Do you?
watch the ferry. We've watched the ferries all the time go across to Picton on the other island. And yeah, yeah.
So it's actually on the list. We were talking about the list. It's gotten kind of short because I think we've done like all the like things. So it's on the list. It's just every time I think about it, and I love Air New Zealand. I've taken it from because they do the
It's
two
my
legs.
favorite.
So they do it
Yeah.
from there to here and then here to Europe. And I've
Hmm.
done that a lot. The I with instead of E, we're gonna get into later. But
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing I just have an effort. I'm like, what did you just say? So so it's on the list. It's just every time I look at that flight, I think the longest I've done is China, and that's 13.
And you can
And
make it. It's 13 now from LA to Auckland,
so
direct flight.
I've done it. I've
It's
done
not fun.
it. I've done it. But the 13 to
Not fun.
like China was not the most joy I've ever had.
No, it's not. It's not a good time, but
Because
it's
Europe seems even closer. The only thing.
Europe is so, and now Europe is so close, so far from me. I've either got to go from here to New York to Europe or here to Abu Dhabi and then
And
to
I know
Europe.
people
And
who do
it's
that
just,
both. Yeah.
oh, I don't want to. Yeah, well, now you have a friend in Wellington, so come visit. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so
This
much for
was
having me today. It was great to see you.